As stated by many speakers, presbyopia is a multifactorial conditions, including our experience, archetypes, idealizations, projections, difficulties, and suffering. So it's an extremely complex framework with negative and positive factors that, of course, have an impact on the patient's acceptance of wearing spectacles and life expectancy. So all the factors that I'm going to look at must be taken into account from a multidisciplinary viewpoint. So the patient, we have to abandon the strictly medical and optical approach to embrace a more psychological and relational approach. This broader approach must include a more psychological and perceptive evaluation of presbyopia as it affects the personal experience, relationships, and adaptation to the external world. In order to understand what limitations presbyopia puts on the individual, we should say that humans are the only animals that have developed the capacity to write what they think and turn it into sequential symbolic codes. With this code, we can understand other people's thoughts that have been put down in writing. So in order to be able to do that, we need to have an intact visual receptor, neurological system, and good motor and muscular systems. It's a bit like the spectacle creating a communication barrier between ourselves and the others. It's not only the fact that at a restaurant we need to wear spectacles to read the menu, but the closer we are to a person, the less we can interpret nonverbal messages, and that can have an impact on understanding others. Consequently, we may have problems related to a narcissistic wound and a reduction in libido, and so an impact on sexual drive. We may have psychosomatic implications leading to other conditions such as sleep disorders, respiratory disorders, and so on and so forth. People tend to perceive presbyopia as a sign of aging, as an enemy undermining one's own integrity. Presbyopia is a step in a process of change. People experience different bodily changes with the passing of time. Different changes and diseases occurring with the passing of time tell us that we've reached a turning point in our lives. And this turning point coincides with menopause and andropause. For this reason, presbyopia is a moment of crisis, a personal crisis, having to deal with menopause and andropause. Everything changes in the physiology. There are metabolic changes, vascular, hormonal changes, and all these changes affect the sexual drive. In women during menopause, there's a reduction in sexual drive. And of course, that may lead to vaginal dryness, vaginism, which is a condition that prevents intercourse. There may be pain during intercourse, and so a rejection of intercourse. There's a reduced capacity to reach an orgasm, and therefore it has a negative impact on seduction and on the seductive power and on the way women relate to men. For men, things don't change a lot. In fact, male menopause has an impact on sexual drive and excitement. It takes them a longer time, it takes longer stimulation, and direction takes longer to happen, and longer stimulation is required. Intercourse is longer, and then of course, that has an impact on the erectile function, and ejaculation takes a very long time to occur, and sometimes never happens. And ejaculation has a considerable impact, same as erection is considered a sign of virility, and therefore impaired virility has a negative impact on self-confidence. All this has an impact on identity, personality, and the way we relate to the others. Therefore, presbyopia is considered as a point break, the starting point for very many disorders. So presbyopia is a crisis, is a narcissistic wound, an additional narcissistic wound. It is interpreted as something to be hidden, something that reminds you to be ill. And spectacles are interpreted as something bad, reminding them to be that they're old. Let's not forget that we're the children of Generation L, a generation where it is forbidden to grow old, to become fat, to become gray. So our body culture is very strict. We need to have a young lifestyle, so lift-ups, remodeling, designers' clothing, botulinum toxin. So all of a sudden, this body, due to presbyopia, loses its value, is no longer functioning, is no longer young. So in managing these patients, we need to take all this into account because we need to help people overcome the emotional barrier of presbyopia and the spectacles that they have to use in order to obtain patient compliance, or patients come to us for a long time and never end up using spectacles. Let's not forget that spectacles are like prostheses and are experienced as such by the patient, that experiences them as crutches that have to be worn every day and remind them that they're growing old, that aging. It is a never-present symbol of aging. Spectacles become tangible evidence of a loss, with an impact of our relationship with the world, with our own bodies, and with our own identities. Spectacles become our brand name, our brand identity that define us with respect to the others. I'm wearing spectacles, so everybody thinks I'm old and there's something wrong with me. So we need to consider patient perception of spectacles. Spectacles can be experienced as good or bad, just depending on the personal experience. Spectacles are bad if the person cannot overcome the emotional barrier of aging, and spectacles are seen as a limit, as a limitation, as something reminding them that they're no longer independent. They have to use it every day, and they limit them in so many different ways, and they become more insecure. When the person manages to overcome the emotional barrier created by the spectacles, they can become a point of strength, a point of seduction, and they are no longer optical objects. They become designer accessories, highlighting the seductive function of the eyes. So presbyopia becomes seductive. So spectacles focus people's attention onto the eyes and make you sexy, trendy, and make you look intellectual. In male erotic imagination, a bespectacled woman is experienced as exciting. It gives you the feeling of having power over the woman, erotic fantasies on a sexy PA or your teacher at elementary school, and women with spectacles, they look more sophisticated and elegant. Same for men. Spectacles convey the image of a powerful, interesting, educated man. So past 40 years of age, that's the winning formula to attract women. And men look like they are more willing to listen. And so women feel more accepted. And so many people said that the eyes are the mirror of the soul. Lacrimosis due to accommodation defect have an impact on affective reactivity and sexual imagination. Mydriasis is read by a brain either as a sign of fear or as a sign of sexual arousal or love. So the person in front of us, the brain of the person in front of us, will read the signal coming from our eyes as a sign of interest that stimulates empathy, listening, and rapport. Well, presbyopia is about the presence and lack of desire, and the tension between these two actions gives rise to eroticism. There are no bad or good spectacles. It all depends on our perception of them, on our perception of correction. So rather than acting upon the disease, on the correction of a defect, we should try and look at the psychological impact of wearing glasses, acceptance leading to healing and cure. So in conclusion, let me tell you that maybe presbyopia in the end is not so negative. It is a mature prize to be leading to a sexual switching of a person, cognitive and sexual switching of a person towards the discovery of a new identity. It is a disability, and therefore we need to adapt to it, and it enables us to see things from another point of view. It can become a functional element leading to growth. What's the alternative to aging then? Well, the alternative to aging is death, so we'd rather go for the aging.